Let's talk about Lighter today, shall we? As he is the first true son of the Sons of Caledon, and the undefeated champion of the Outer Ring. And today, you will learn about his abilities, teammates, W engines, and more. So sit back and buckle up, as you learn just how much of an impact Lighter can bring.
Welcome to my channel. My name is Kit to the 7th, and I'll be your host today.
Lighter impacts his teams by allowing carries such as Soldier 11 or Ellen, who rely on consistent DPS output rather than burst damage, to have a much more flexible team rotation, all while not having to sacrifice the team's daze damage in the process, due to Lighter being able to deal massive amounts of daze damage within a short amount of time being on field. And this leads to a huge quality of life improvement for any fire or ice DPS that wants to be on field to dish out their DPS as long as possible, leading to a more consistent team DPS and clear speed in the in-game content. And having a stun agent that works with your DPS's field time requirements, and not against, will always be nice to have. But the great thing about Lighter is, that's not all. As he also impacts the offensive end with his core passive, Accelerant, allowing him to enter the morale burst state. And by landing the 5th hit of his attack sequence in this state, he will then decrease the enemy's ice and fire resistance by 15% for 30 seconds. And by activating his additional ability, Fighting Spirit, while in the morale burst state, and landing the 5th hit of his basic attack again, he will also increase the team's ice and fire damage by up to a maximum of 75%. Still with me? Lighter is the total package for a stun agent by giving great daze potential, flexibility for his teams, and also allowing his allies to shine with his incredible buffs. Anyone who loves ice or fire damage dealers can easily benefit from picking up Lighter for your account, but I'll talk about this more later. For now, let's break down his abilities one by one, shall we? When looking at Lighter's abilities, we should start with his basic attacks, as they are the most important part of his kit. Lighter will unleash a standard 5-hit attack sequence, and the 5th hit, being very similar to Shingi's 3rd hit of her basic attack sequence, can be used repeatedly. But unlike Shingi, who uses hers to build her meter, Lighter is the complete opposite and uses his to drain his meter, and this meter is called Morale, and his Morale mechanic is what makes his basic attack so important. So outside of his core skill, this will be the next most important ability for you to level up for Lighter, and we will come back to his basic attacks when we get to his core skill. But next is Lighter's dodge counter, and overall this is one of the more underwhelming dodge counters in the game, as it is pretty average in terms of iframes and daze potential. So this is the least important ability to level up, as Lighter inherently is a character that won't be on field for a long period of time, so you won't really ever truly take advantage of his dodge counter. But looking at Lighter's assist ability, it is a standard defensive assist, meaning he can contribute more daze damage by default compared to a character such as Grace or Billy, whose assist is a dodge than an actual parry. And looking at the daze multipliers for it, Lighter actually now has the new best defensive assist in the game in terms of raw daze multipliers of any stunner, so this is definitely one of the abilities you should eventually level with him. But moving on to Lighter's EX special, he performs a fiery uppercut, dealing average daze damage for a stun agent, and has a lot of iframes due to the long animation. Overall, it is a fine ability, but not one of his most important. Now Lighter's chain attack is a special case, as in the past it would have been an ability not worth leveling, but with the ultimate changes coming to the game in patch 1.4, it is now worth leveling, as all stun agents' ultimates deal a massive amount of overall daze damage, allowing for you to potentially be able to get 2 stuns on an enemy in quick succession. The only real downside of this is, at the time of recording, Lighter's overall daze multipliers for his ultimate is the lowest of all the current S-rank stun agents, but overall it still does great daze damage and is now worth leveling with the coming changes. And finally, his core skill, Accelerant, is by far his most important ability overall, as this is what is tied to his morale mechanic. Morale is a mechanic that Lighter will naturally gain over time, especially when he is off field. And once the meter has reached a minimum 80, you will then be able to quick assist Lighter onto the field. Then he will enter the morale burst state, and this is how Lighter will be able to reduce enemies' fire and ice resistance by 15%, and it will last for a total of 30 seconds. Which again is massive for a character such as Ellen Jo, who wants all the field time she can get. But Lighter also has a special property that allows him to put the collapse effect on enemies if he hits them with the final attack of his basics in the morale burst state, and the collapse state will then extend the stun state on the enemy by an additional 3 seconds, allowing your DPS to get an additional combo off the enemy while they are stunned. And as long as there's one attack agent or Sons of Caledon teammate on the team, while Lighter is still in the morale burst state, he will then give the effect elation to his entire team, and this effect can stack up to 20 times whenever he hits enemies with a 5th basic attack. And each stack will boost the team's fire and ice damage by a percentage, depending on the amount of stacks built at the time. My recommendation for leveling up abilities is core skill, basic attack, assist, EX special, chain attack, then dodge counter. But with his abilities out of the way, let's move on to potential teammates. For DPS agents that can pair lighter, they obviously need to be fire or ice. So that leaves us with Ellen, Soldier 11, Bernice, and Miyabi, with an honorable mention to Soukaku and Lucy. And as for supports that could be in the third slot of teams, we are looking at Soukaku, Lucy, Ben, Lycan, and Caesar. So let's go ahead and start with Ellen Jo. And I have to say that she continues to get better and better each patch it seems, as she has now added yet another teammate to pair with her in Lighter. And Lighter fits Ellen's playstyle so well, as she is the complete opposite of a DPS such as Juyen, and wants to hog all the field time to herself. And with Lighter not needing much field time to do his job, we can now see teams of Lighter and Soukaku, Lighter and Lycan, Lighter and Lucy, or Lighter and Caesar. And yes, the last two teams will make it so Ellen's additional ability will not trigger, which gives her up to a maximum of 30 extra % ice damage. But with Lighter already giving so much ice damage and shredding ice resistance, you won't feel this loss of her additional ability at all. For Soldier 11, I believe Lighter will now complete her best in slot team, with Soldier 11, Lighter, and Caesar, as this team provides immense comfort in terms of rotations and also survivability. And you won't have to sacrifice anything to get all your buffs on Soldier 11, but you can also run a team of Lighter and Ben if you don't have Caesar and still want the extra defense on your team, and you can even opt for Lighter and Lucy or Lighter and Bernice if you're just looking for pure offense and you don't have Caesar. Now for Miyabi, she is the most restrictive of all the premium DPS here, as you can run Lighter with her, but if you do, then you will need to have Bernice, otherwise there is no real reason to pair these two. However, if you do have Bernice, then the team of Miyabi, Bernice, and Lighter will work wonders, as Lighter will be buffing Miyabi and Bernice's damage at the exact same time, while not interfering with the team's rotations in the process. So for my Miyabi wanters, if you do have Bernice, then Lighter can be a great option for you to pick up for your Miyabi. Now for the honorable mentions of Soukaku and Lucy, you can run these two as a DPS perfectly fine. If you choose to use Soukaku though, you will need to run either Lucy or Caesar as a support. Now yes, you will lose Soukaku's additional ability, but losing her additional ability to gain the buffs of the other two teammates in the situation is still a net positive for her. And for Lucy, if you want to make her a DPS and pair her with Lighter, then Caesar or Bernice will need to be the last slot. And if you use Bernice, then the 4-piece Inferno Medal now becomes a great option for Lucy to use on her drive disc. But now that the teams are done, let's move on to W engines. Lighter has so many W engine options, with the signature Blazing Laurel, Ice Jade Teapot, the Restrained, Hellfire Gears, Steam Oven, 6-shooter, and a special mention for Precious Fossilized Core, all being viable engines on him. His own signature is by far the best though, as it further increases his buff potential for his teammate by applying a debuff to the enemies called Wilt, and for every stack of Wilt on the enemy Lighter has attacked, will increase the fire and ice crit damage the target receives by up to 50%. Ice Jade Teapot is looking to be his next best though, as it will also give his teammates a buff, and Lighter, being a basic attack focused stun agent, will be able to get this buff very easily. Now I believe the Restrained W engine, which is Lycan's signature, will be able to follow next, as Lighter will be able to max out the buff for the additional days very quickly, giving him a solid 30% extra days for himself. Now Hellfire Gears is a W engine that can potentially perform better or worse depending on how much of a difference the ER makes. And as of right now, I cannot tell you if it makes a noticeable difference or not, which is why I'm going to put it below the Restrained for now, because if the ER doesn't make a big enough impact, then you're only really gaining 20 extra % days from it. But my opinion can easily change once he comes out, and we can properly test in multiple environments just how much of a difference does the ER really make, which will also be very similar to why I have Steam Oven next in line, as we just don't know if the ER will make a big impact right now. But the Steam Oven does have a very nice passive, and I do believe Lighter can take advantage of it, so it will still be a solid choice overall. And finally, I have the 6-shooter, which is the Battle Pass W engine, as the next one in line, as I do actually really love the passive on it for Lighter, as he should be able to max out the stacks on his W engine every single time. But it being a Battle Pass weapon, there aren't going to be many people who have it, and if you do have it, you may only have one copy, and I think that will put it behind the others for now. But I want to give a special mention to the Fossilized Core, as it can be an amazing W engine for a lot of stun agents, but the biggest issue is this is a W engine that loses all of its power if you don't kill the enemy in one stun window, as the passive will completely disappear if the enemy is below 50% health, meaning you can only get the most out of this W engine at the beginning of fight and killing them in one stun window. And as HP continues to grow higher and higher in Zenless Zone 0, it is becoming more and more difficult for the average player to be able to kill an enemy in one stun window now. Lighter overall is a pretty niche agent, and I believe to also be a luxury agent as well, as he is niche in the sense that he only has 2 team archetypes that he works well in fire and ice teams, but what makes him also a luxury unit is the fact that the other supports are still more than good enough, meaning he is not a necessity right now, and characters like Ellen Jo or Soldier 11 both have very comfortable team options already, so he isn't an agent people should stress about pulling yet. But if you are looking for an upgrade for your fire ice team, then Lighter is a fantastic choice for you, and he will round out your account very well. But when he is released, I will have more updated information for you all, and we will do thorough testing as well. But firstly, I would like to thank Flamma for the calcs that he provided me that you have seen throughout the video, and a link to his channel will be in the description below. And also thank you all for 5,000 subscribers, as our next goal is 7,000 to stay on brand with the channel. And don't forget to check me out on Twitter at Ket7 and join our incredible Discord, as we are just a few members away from hitting the huge milestone of 1,000 people. And I also do weekly giveaways there as well. And be sure to subscribe for more ZZZ content. And as always, my name is Ket7, and with that, I'm signing out.